Hey guys, this video is for the girls that feel like they're doing everything right, they're eating clean, they're tracking their macros, they're working out, but they still just feel tired, anxious, bloated, whatever the symptoms may be. By the end of this video, you're gonna learn why actually slowing down and learning how to nourish your body is actually going to improve your metabolism and your energy, and how letting go can be one of the most powerful things that you can do for your health. We're also gonna give you a few tangible takeaways of how you can start doing that today.
Love it, guys. Welcome back. So let's just kick it off by, I guess, sharing a little bit about our personal experience in this area. I know we kind of have opposite similar experiences in the sense that we both had a lack of regulation in our bodies due to fear and other wounding within us, and that showed up as trying to control our food. But we both went about it in very different ways. So I can just speak for myself. Mine came from a more restrictive approach where I was taking things out of my diet. I was trying to eat less. I was being really, really rigid and controlling with my diet. And the root of that was fear, and it was trying to feel control in my life. It's very normal for people who are kind of type A, perfectionist mentality to struggle with this. And then Annabelle had a little bit of a different approach. I'll let her speak for her and just her experience with that.
Yeah, I definitely kind of went the other way. I didn't experience the same kind of cutting things out, but in a very, very stressful period of my life, I kind of leaned on food as a coping mechanism, and I started in this pattern of overeating. And it was definitely a way for me to regulate my nervous system and feel safe, whether I was aware of doing it or not in the moment. And I think the end result for me was that it created a lot of fear around food. And it also then made me not really trust my body and not really trust the cues that I was getting. And it just fed this narrative of self-doubt. But underneath all of that, there was a place of fear, right? And so, what we're going to talk about today and learning how to regulate your nervous system and how that actually has such an impact on the way that your body actually absorbs the nutrients that you're eating, in some ways more so than necessarily what you're eating. Obviously, that is very important. But, for type A girlies who are very aware, sometimes the stress around food can actually cause more damage to your health than what you're eating.
Yeah, it's so true. And so what happens is when you're stressed and you're trying to control your food, it becomes more about what you're actually putting into your body or not putting into your body. And the stress creates dysregulation in your body because it completely, it creates cortisol, and cortisol just throws off all of the hormones in your body. So your body stops operating as it's supposed to, and that's why you feel fatigue, and that's why you feel bloating, and your digestion weakens, and your metabolism slows down, and so you might start to store more fat than you're used to. And so this is all just to say that you cannot regulate your body when you're trying to control it. So I guess that kind of brings up the question of how do you regulate your body? And that's what we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, Caroline, what do you feel like have been the most impactful things for you when you were at the beginning of your healing journey in regulating your relationship with food and your body, and kind of what impacts did you see?
Yeah, so I think honing into nourishment and taking a lot of pressure off of, what your body looks like and focusing on what your body feels like. And that sounds really cliche, but it honestly really is true. At least for me, I think I cared a lot about what my body looks like. Although when I really think about it, I think on the outside, that's what I thought. But again, it just came down to this feeling of wanting to feel safe in my body. And so when you can really hone into that and nourish your body to feel safe, that's what really changes the game. And so I think there are different ways to go about that. There's a practical approach to what you are putting into your body and how that food does actually have an impact on how you feel physiologically. So let's break down the food portion first, and then we can talk kind of about the emotional and the mindset and lifestyle tips. But when it comes to food, in order to feel safe in your body, that translates to a stable blood sugar. When your blood sugar is like this, it's really hard to feel safety in your body. It's no wonder you feel stressed and a little bit, dysregulated in every way. And so the most important thing is eating for blood sugar regulation. What does that look like? That looks like eating protein, fat, and produce, because produce has fiber. So protein, fat, and fiber are really the most important things. The reason for that is because the combination creates a stable blood sugar. That's not to say that carbs are bad, by the way. You can absolutely eat carbs, and a lot of carbs come with fiber, which is amazing, which slows down that blood sugar effect. It slows down how glucose works in the body. But making sure that you have protein and fat first. Fat is so good for your hormones. Protein is very satiating and it makes you feel full and it stabilizes your blood sugar. So look on your plate, make sure you have a source of protein. And this comes down to any meal that you're eating, comes down to any snack. Protein, a healthy fat. So what do proteins look like for people who don't know? I mean, I think most people know what protein is, but meat, fish, if you're a vegetarian, eggs, soy, like tofu, tempeh. But yeah, animal protein, especially if you eat animal protein, which I highly recommend you do, because I tried the vegan diet once and I never felt satiated even when I was eating enough protein. The fact that it comes from an animal source, it's a lot more satiating. Healthy fats, so things like nuts, nut butters, avocado, seeds, olive oil, stuff like that. And then produce. You guys all know what produce is. The reason that we eat produce, one, it comes with a lot of micronutrients, which really do have a physiological effect in your body, but also it comes with fiber, which your body, it helps with the blood sugar spike. So that's what you should look for when creating a plate and when eating. And now, Annabelle, can you walk us through like some more lifestyle mindset things that you can do when it comes to food to create a stable blood sugar and regulate your hormones?
Yeah, I mean, starting on the mindset piece, I think before you do anything or change anything in your diet, it really comes down to the intention, right? And that idea of nourishment over, regulation, I think is a really powerful one to start with. And kind of on that as well, it's in eating enough during the day to then not lead you to feel unsafe in your body, which will then lead to you to overeat at night. All these things kind of create a disconnection from your body. And I think it also really depends on kind of where you're at in your journey. But what I've found really quite helpful, especially when I was having some gut issues or I was feeling really anxious, was having 3 meals a day. And if you need a snack as well, that's totally fine. But eating something within the first hour of waking up, especially something that is warm and nourishing and has some protein in it. It doesn't have to be heavy, it doesn't have to be a full big meal, but it does signal to your body that it is safe. It allows your cortisol naturally rises in the morning, and it kind of allows you to feel grounded. And I think that was kind of one of the main, I used to always eat later in the day, and that was also just by preference, but since I've made that shift, it does make you feel a lot better.
I'm just laughing because it's so true. We used to, I think we were big on the fasting hype for a while, which I don't want to make any like big, bold claims on here and say that fasting is bad, but women, fasting impacts you differently than it impacts men. It just does. But I think like we used to force our bodies to adhere to fasting and literally like not eat till 2 p.m. And then we would wonder, like we were genuinely perplexed as to why we would want to eat the entire cupboard at night. And it's because our blood sugar was on an absolute roller coaster. We also just hadn't eaten enough calories by the nighttime, because when you cut out half of the day, you're obviously not consuming enough calories. And I know that's a big reason why a lot of women do fast. It's to, restrict calorie intake. And that works great for men, but ladies, you cannot fight your biology. You cannot fight how your body was created. I don't care. Like if you say fasting works for me, if you're postmenopausal, this is very different. You can absolutely fast. And I think, fasting worked for me for a while, but when you do it prolonged, like I think a lot of girls who've maybe only been doing it for a few weeks or a few months, they think it works for them and they don't realize the impact that it will have later on in life. So anyways, this is just to say, breakfast is huge. And 3 meals a day is huge. I used to think that if I sat down and ate 3 meals a day, I'd feel more bloated. And it was actually when I sat down to eat regular meals and stopped doing like little birdie-like habits that all of my bloating disappeared.
In all honesty, though, a big part of this is learning to listen to your body. And I, for example, sometimes in this healing journey would then force myself to eat in moments where I wasn't necessarily hungry. And, not everybody likes this, but I sometimes will, depending on just how I'm feeling, the amount of exercise that I'm doing, and this is just a practical thing, if it suits you, but I will sometimes split my breakfast in half. I know it sounds kind of weird, but I do like to have some sort of caffeinated drink, whether it be matcha or coffee in the morning, and I want to protect my hormones. So I like to eat a little bit of something, and I also just feel a lot better when I eat a little bit of something before I have that. But I don't necessarily want to go work out immediately on a really full stomach. So sometimes I'll have, 2 hard-boiled eggs or something small before I have that, and then I'll have the rest of my breakfast after my workout. And that I have found has worked really well for me.
Yeah, listening to your body is huge. I think for you also got into this phase where when you wanted to make sure to hit your protein, and even if you were like direly full, you'd be slamming down more protein, and it would obviously really upset your digestion and your energy and all of that. So guys, listening to your body is super important. And I think if you can just ask yourself, what can I add to this meal that's going to nourish me, or not even in terms of food, but what can I add to this experience that's going to nourish me, as opposed to what can I take away? That's a little bit counterintuitive, because my next point was going to say take away distractions while you eat, but really we can think about it in terms of we're adding peace and we're adding presence and we're adding intentionality with our food. But this is something I still struggle with, but slowing down while you eat does impact your hormones, because when you're in a rush and you're eating really fast, your cortisol is increasing, and that affects your hormones. So if you can create the most peaceful environment to eat in, that's why, these cultures in the blue zone diets, if you guys are aware of the blue zones, they're the places in the world where people live the longest and they're the healthiest. They're very well researched. And one common thread among all of these communities is that meal times are sacred. They sit down with loved ones, with friends. They sit down in a community and they share a meal together. And I think when you do that, you're naturally going to slow down. You're not going to be scrolling on your phone. You're not going to be watching TV and distracted. You're very present where you are, and you're focused around the people around you. That lowers your hormones, your stress hormones, and that's going to improve your digestion. It's going to improve the nutrient absorption. It's all around so much better. So obviously that's not possible for every meal, for everybody, especially like lunch or breakfast. You may be in an office eating your meals, you may be working from home. So how can you create a similar peaceful environment when you do that? And I will say slowing down, taking screens away, taking distractions away. And then the biggest thing for me is going for a walk after I eat. Even if it's literally a 5-minute walk, a 10-minute walk, it has an impact. And the way that I know this is because a few years ago, I had one of those things blood sugar monitors. Yes. And I would track these things. I would look at how certain foods affected my blood sugar, how certain habits and activities. And I noticed that even when I went for a 5-minute walk after a meal and I would just get my blood flowing, or I would get outside, I would get sunlight, my blood sugar would come down after a meal way faster, and the spike would be way less minimal. It's crazy. I think a lot of people think these things are woo-woo, and so they kind of disregard them and they don't do them, but they work. These simple habits and lifestyle tweaks, they really do work.
I also just want to add on because slowing down while you're eating can be a really difficult thing. And sometimes it can also create more stress when you feel like you have to have this forced, like I need to put my phone down, and there can be a lot of charge around it, right? And one thing that's really helped me is just taking a few deep breaths before I start my meal and setting kind of an intention of just like, thank you. Thank you for the food that's going to nourish me. And also, when I was at the height of my gut issues, one of the things that really did shift things for me was changing my perspective to say thank you to my body for telling me that something is off right now. And that doesn't mean I have to take this energy of I need to fix it, but just learning to listen rather than treating my body like there's a problem with it. And I kid you not, the next day I woke up and a lot of my, slow motility issues had resolved on their own. And there's just so much power in having a little bit of an intention behind, your approach to how you nourish your body.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you're meant to work with your body, not against it. And so the more that you trust your body, the more that it's going to trust you back. So that kind of wraps up where we are today. I think we just want to encourage you guys to try one small thing. It can be so small, to just really focus on nourishing your body and slowing down. And when you can create a sense of safety in your body, you really do lower cortisol and your stress hormones lower, all of your hormones regulate, and you're gonna see a lot of those symptoms go away. And the symptoms are different, but the root cause is often similar, and it's a lack of safety in your body. So try one of these small tips today to see a huge improvement in, your fatigue, your bloating, your insomnia, all of it, guys. It's all related to your hormones.
Thank you so much for watching. Let us know kind of in the comments if you recognize any differences and how you're feeling.
Thanks, guys. See you in the next one.